Uh, Good day, everyone. Good day, good day, good day. My name is Siponkosi. I'm part of the SALGC Club. Welcome to the second lecture of the year, 2022. Today we are speaking to a very uh, important person and talking about an important subject. To us as SALGC. SALGC is South African Leadership Gentlemen's Club. It's a club that was formed in 2019. What we stand for is to empower men. We've realized that men in the society have been left behind. We've got programs that empowering women for them to be better and able to grab the opportunities in business and everywhere else in leadership. We do not have such programs for men, or very few of those. So, as a club, we wanted to close that gap to ensure that men are empowered as well. We've got five cardinal pillars, so these are the pillars for us. One of them is mental liberation of South African men through various programs in partnership with all stakeholders. That is transformation from good to great. Total respect for self, women, children, and vulnerable. That is linked to our slogan, which is reviving human conscious and giving back hope, rebuilding general relationship with our resources such as land, communities, and money, creating economic opportunities amongst local communities and establishing economic beneficiation from local wealth, ensuring that our communities and youth particular are available to industrial revolution opportunities and challenges. So this one of the this what we're doing today is mental liberation, where we are empowering men and women, but our initial focus is men. We've got a desk which is Friends of the Club, and that's made up of women because we can't be men living in isolation or is in some island. We have women that assist us in terms of making sure that the programs that we have are able to empower our communities, because there are a lot of women which are raising boys as well. So it's important that they also get empowered to make sure that the agenda for men empowerment also comes to the forth, and make sure that one of the pillars we say respect for other humans, and we stand here against any GBV. We want men to be able to talk when there are issues and we resolve them. We've got a part of one of our programs where we've got Mr. Israel Sekhale, who heads the Liwa Labana. Liwa Labana, it means a men's cave where men can come together and able to talk about issues that affect them. Let me not drag much. Let me introduce to you our speaker. Today we are going to be talking about a very important subject, whereby we know that the state give out tenders, and the state need to procure. The state doesn't go directly to the industries; it goes to the communities, or it goes to business people to procure certain services and goods. So those are the opportunities for South Africans to grab. And now we want to make sure that we understand that, because there are a lot of things that goes around that area where people think now we can't get jobs, or the strategy on which we use to procure or to try to be part of that supply chain sort of channel, it's not successful. So we want to see from someone who understands that space, to say what is that we can do better in order to able to grab to those opportunities. So today's speaker is Ntandose Gamede. She loves knowledge, and especially applied knowledge. Her career has included non-management and non-managerial roles. Her experience all in the public sector includes engineering, water service, skills development, supply chain management, quality management, and compliance. Her responsibilities as economic transformation manager included developing procedures to empower emerging suppliers and supplier support mechanism. Passion for improving others, for for others' lives, big and small, drives their careers. So let me read it again. Passion for improving others' lives, big or small, drives her career. The lessons she has derived from public sector experience are invaluable. She is a woman eager to contribute to the advancement of people in our country and the global community. And also she is a writer. She authored a book in 2019. It's a self-published book titled Born Again, Think Again. So Born Again, Think Again. The first of many to come. We believe that she is still going to write many more that are going to come through our way. And Ntandose, we want to appreciate you and thank you for the opportunity you are offering the club to come and share your skills and also share your experience in the space to, as part of your passion is to empower and share knowledge. So we appreciate you and welcome to South African Leadership Gentlemen's Club. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. I also want to express my gratitude to the South African Leadership Gentlemen's Club for extending the invite. And I'd like to basically state that all protocols are observed and good afternoon to all. So I'll definitely be shooting straight. Those that will join later, we hope they don't miss much of it, but I'll move as gradually as I can. So please confirm that you can see my slide that I've projected.
Yes, I can.
Thank you. So yes, in terms of the wonderful introduction that I've obtained, thank you. If I may just, thank you so much for muting. My name is Ntandose Gamede. My public sector experience is 15 years, of which 4 I've spent doing more engineering related work. And then the 11 years were split across skills development, supply chain management, quality management, and compliance. So I trust that for anyone who may be wondering, my background, this gives you comfort in terms of what I'm able to share, the little that I'm able to share today in terms of trying to enhance our collective understanding of what is required when you want to do business with the state. I also want to add a caution that I am presenting in my personal capacity and not representing any organ of state. I will therefore not respond to organization-specific questions. So this is purely in my personal capacity. I also would like to make a reminder that can we please mute? I can actually hear some voice coming through. Can we just remember to mute? We do not want to hear the secrets of your home. We also would not want to see that which you don't want us to see. So please also just be careful that you muted your video, especially if you are not online in terms of being the one that is speaking. So if you can just assist us with that, it will ensure that the proceedings go without any or much glitches. In terms of the contents, I'll be presenting the premise. So what is this about? What will I be covering? What will I not be covering? What can you expect and what can't you expect? Number 2, I'll be then talking to the state, and we can all have different views of what the state is, but I will share what I mean by the state in reference to the presentation. I will then talk to the procurement process, which is really at the core of why this presentation is being done today. And then I will be presenting some pitfalls that may be important for us to avoid if we are intending to do business with the state. And then I will also offer some pointers, which are tips on how, on the things that you need to look out for and make sure that you have gotten right. So starting off with the premise, I will start off from this diagram to introduce one of the universal laws, and that is the law of action. So in terms of what we are able to manifest as people on this earth, it has a component of thought, it has a component of emotion, but if you are not going to add this third dimension, then there's not much that you will manifest. So you may have a good thought that I have a business and I've got a good concept. I'm passionate about it, which then talks to the emotion side. I'm passionate about it. I want to do it. But the moment that you are not going to actually engage, number one, the action, but number two, the right action, then unfortunately, you will not be able to manifest what it is that you want. I think a lot of us get caught up in the thought and emotion, even especially in terms of what happens in the public sector space. I will be presenting later on some major change that has taken place. So a lot of us are caught up in the thought, how can this happen? Emotion, we are very angry about it. Some of us are angry. How can the government do this? Or maybe some of us are excited. Oh yes, finally, you know, it's happening. All of us have different emotions about it. But if you are displeased, what action are you going to take? Because that is really what makes the difference in terms of our experience and our collective experience on this earth. So those of you that are of the Christian persuasion, you will note James chapter 2, verse 17, and I quote it from the New Living Translation, and it states, so you see, faith by itself isn't enough. Unless it produces good deeds, it is dead and useless. So take this presentation today as a call to action. Let's move beyond the thought. Let's move beyond the emotion and let us do. Let us do. That is what this presentation will be, at least assisting us. It's a call for us to start the doing. So in putting it in other words, what we think or what we know or what we believe is in the end of little consequence. The only consequence is what we do. And this is from a fella called John Ruskin. Now, in terms of the target audience, some in the audience may be in any of these four groups. I have defined these groups. So they are not written somewhere in a thesis. It's me basically just trying to categorize and manage the expectation of what I'll be covering in this presentation. So starting off with group A. The group A consists of the novices. So this is a person who has no clue what I mean by the state, or even doing business with the state. So you actually may not even have a clue. Perhaps you do think of having a company at some point in your life, but you have no clue really what I'm talking about here today. And group B consists of those that I'm labeling after hours. So this is a person that would say, I have a side business that is coming together nicely, and I want to formalize it and gain entry into government opportunities. Then there's group C. You are a mover, so you are gaining some traction, but you are not really shaking the ground. So you're a mover, but not a shaker. And what you would be saying to me is, I have a registered company, but have been battling to navigate the different government requirements when submitting quotations. And then group D is the one that talks to the established. And in here, this is a person that would say, I've got this thing, and I've had numerous government contracts that were successfully implemented. So with those four groups, who am I talking to today? Who will this presentation be most relevant to? It will be relevant to the novice. It will be relevant to the after hours. It will be relevant to group C, the mover, but not the shaker. And then slightly, there might be some relevance to group D, but I don't want to be criticized later to say, oh, Ntandose presented on things that I already know. But the crux of this presentation is really talking to those that are still trying to find their footing and so forth. But what I would then say is that don't leave this meeting. Don't leave this platform. We will need your engagement when we go through the discussion session, because it's important that you share your experience as a supplier. And remember, from where I'm coming from, I am sharing from the perspective of a procuring entity. May I request that we mute? I am sharing from a procuring entity, not from a supplier's perspective. So the learnings from being a supplier really will be key when we are addressed by anyone in our midst who is part of group D, which is the established. Now, can I get a show of hands in terms of the people that are in this Zoom platform at this moment in time, to understand who is a novice, who is in group A, group B, group C, or group D. And I would like for you to use the chat just to indicate type in one of the letters, group A, B, C, or D, where you belong. It will take about a minute to let that happen. Please confirm that I'm still audible, Chair.
Yes, you are audible. As we await the participants to write one of the letters to say where do they fall.
Okay, thank you. I've got an A, I've got a B. Okay, I'm timing it on my side, so we'll give it exactly a minute. Maybe let me just bring in a timer from my computer. So for those that entered late, can you indicate which of these groups you fall into? All right, I see that we are getting some more participation. So thank you for that.
For those who came late, we are asking a question, which of this group that you fall on? So you type a letter on the chat box, which of this group that you fall on, based on the definition by the presenter.
Okay, we've got 30 seconds to go. I think we should be covered in a short bit. Okay, so with 14 seconds to go, I see more A's, and second to that, we've got B's. So we actually don't even have C's or D's right now in our midst, but not all is lost. So that means we will be able to engage quite nicely. So perhaps then let us move on. Thank you for your participation. I will be also requesting your involvement, and that will be through also the chat in a later session. Now, what can you expect from this presentation? This is information sharing. So I will provide links, I'll provide pointers, I'll provide pitfalls. But again, going back to the law of action. So more action in terms of research and application will be needed on your side. So you'll need to do that to further equip yourself. There is no guarantee that you will get awarded a tender based on the information in this presentation. So I offer no guarantee whatsoever. I don't have the powers and the authorities to give you a tender or to promise you that you'll get a tender. So that expectation, if you did have it, please release it. It's not for today's presentation. And then this presentation is based on the South African context. I say this because I don't take for granted that perhaps now or later, we might be joined by people from different parts of Africa or even the world. So this presentation is limited to the South African context. And this slide deck will not be shared as a distributable document. And Chair, please confirm that we are recording.
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Yes. So you will still be able to refer to the recording, but I will not be sharing this document as a distributable document. Now, moving on to then the crux of it, the state. So I'm quoting from Robert Kiyosaki, who said, before you invest in something, invest in the time to understand it. And I'm sure we can all appreciate if we are going to enter a different sector altogether, you need to actually invest some time to understand it. At times we tend to shoot from the hip and just say, I'll learn when I get there, but there are certain things that you will need to know prior to actually shooting from, the hip. So this presentation, I hope, will be giving you some pointers in terms of that you can build on as you build your understanding of the public sector space in relation to doing business with the state. So for the purpose of this presentation, the state includes government departments, national and provincial. It includes municipalities who are also classified as local government. Now, you may be familiar with the term, the three spheres of government. So those are national, provincial, and local. So the state does include the 3 spheres of government. And then for the purpose of this presentation, I also include the state-owned entities. And in this case, be they entities that are national public entities such as your Eskom or Transnet, or be they government business-owned enterprises such as your South African Bureau of Standards, your water boards, etc. So basically, all of government at some point becomes a procuring entity. Now, in terms of these 3 that are displayed on this slide, most of the procurement rules are similar, with some differentiating aspects due to the laws that regulate the different organs of state. So what I'm saying is the principles are similar, but there may be just those minor intricacies that differ between the 3 categories as I've put in here. So this is where then you will need to engage a bit more research depending on which entity you will be engaging at any point in time. Other terms that I will use interchangeably when I'm mentioning the state are the word government or public sector. So if I'm using either the state or government or public sector, we refer that I'm actually referring to what I call the state. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I know that perhaps from a legal perspective, the state can be defined even further and so forth. And there are some differences. Maybe if you use the word state versus government, I'm asking that for today, let's just lay that a bit down and just understand that if I'm using these terms interchangeably, I'm meaning the same thing. Now, with regard to public procurement, what you have to understand is that we have different role players. We first have the National Treasury. Primarily sets the rules for procurement and contract management. That's the National Treasury. They may assign certain functions to the provincial treasuries, but all in all, National Treasury sets the rules for procurement and contract management. So procuring entities basically have to follow what rules are set by a National Treasury from time to time. Then we have the Construction Industry and Development Board, which is the CIDB. The CIDB influences the procurement and contract management processes with regard to the construction and engineering sector. So if you have a business or you're thinking of having a business that will operate in the construction and engineering sector, there are certain aspects that you must take into account that you will need to comply with as you use an opportunity to submit a quotation or a bid to a procuring entity. Then we have also the DTIC, which is the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, and they influence the procurement processes with regard to industrial procurement, what we call designated sectors or local content. They are also responsible for drafting laws around the broad-based Black economic empowerment laws and regulations, etc. So they are also responsible for that aspect. Then we have the South African Revenue Service, which is SARS in short. They influence the procurement system in terms of they keep track of the tax compliance of suppliers. And as you may not or may know, the procuring entities are required to only appoint or award suppliers that are tax compliant. And then we have the rest of the state. So all state organs, be they national, provincial, local, or state entities, all state organs ultimately are procuring entities. So you have to understand that when these procuring entities are sending out a request for quotation or a request for bid, they would have needed to follow the laws set by National Treasury and influenced by CIDB, DTIC, and SARS. Please indicate if you are still with me using the reactions bar, just so that I know we are still good. Thank you. So moving then on to what regulates the whole procurement of government. What is it that regulates it? It starts with the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. And that is from section 217, which is titled procurement. And I will read it slowly, because it's important for us to understand that when government procures, it's not just because they can. It's actually they are aligning and complying with a legislative provision that actually finds its basis in the Constitution. So Section 2171 states when an organ of state in the national, provincial, or local sphere of government or any other institution identified in national legislation contracts for goods or services, it must do so in accordance with a system which is fair, equitable, transparent, competitive, and cost-effective. We call those the 5 procurement principles. Some will call it that, some will call it 5 procurement elements, but really all in all, procurement within the public sector has to be fair, equitable, transparent, competitive, and cost-effective. Then we have Section 2172, which states that subsection 1 does not prevent the organs of state or institutions referred to in that subsection from implementing a procurement policy providing for categories of preference in the allocation of contracts and the protection or advancement of persons or categories of persons disadvantaged by unfair discrimination. So this clause was seeking to address all those historical imbalances of the past, and may I state my opinion that those imbalances are still of the present. That is my opinion. But nonetheless, we have a provision in the Constitution that tries to address those issues of imbalance. And then subsection 3 states that national legislation must prescribe a framework within which the policy referred to in subsection 2 must be implemented. So we understand that procurement must be done in a certain way. Number 2, there must be a provision to address the historical imbalances. And that framework must be spoken to by national legislation. Now, how many of you are aware of this Constitutional Court judgment, which was Minister of Finance versus Agribusiness, the judgment of which was issued on the 16th of February, 2022, by show of hands? I see I have one person. Okay, so the Minister of Finance was basically taking a particular issue to the Constitutional Court. All in all, let's see how that went. And this affects preferential procurement. This affects how, as procuring entities, we were supposed to assist in addressing the historical imbalances, in as far as having a definite approach in terms of how to bring in elements of empowerment into the procurement space. Now, I'm quoting an extract from the Times Live, an article of the 17th of February. This is a day after the judgment was issued. And the headline reads as Minister has no power to make procurement regulations. And the journalist there states that it's from the Court. 2 days after the judgment, still with Times Live, the Black Business Council calls for fast tracking of bill to give Blacks, women opportunities in tenders. From the Sunday World on the 9th of March, this is last week, BEE tender criteria gets a rewrite. And I just want us to let's just park a little bit here, because I want us to understand what the implication of this case is. And I'm going to be reading from this, and please allow me so that we can all make sure that we are on the same footing. So this is an extract from this very same article. The judgment saw the National Treasury Director General Dondo Mukhajane tell the state organs in a letter dated February 25 that the minister will on an urgent basis be seeking confirmation from the Constitutional Court that the invalidity of the procurement regulations has been and continues to be suspended. He then said that while the department is awaiting guidance from the Apex Court, government entities are advised that, bullet 1, tenders advertised before February 16, 2022 be finalized in terms of the procurement regulations. Second bullet, tenders advertised on or after February 16 be held in abeyance, meaning we must pause, and no new tenders be advertised. However, Mukhajane, in a note dated March 3, backtracked, this is the journalist writing, from new tenders being in abeyance. He instead said state organs may request an exemption from the provisions of the Act for a specific procurement. Mokgajane said the new draft regulations will be published for comment in the week of March 7. I can confirm that the draft regulations have been published for comment on the 10th of March. And then the Black Business Council CEO, Khanki Matabane, said the organization would be meeting with Treasury on Wednesday. And then lastly, Piet Leroux, the CEO of SALGC, hailed the Apex Court's decision as having dealt a fatal blow to BEE. That's where we are, and I'll call you colleagues as a generic term. This is where we are in terms of a major change that has taken place in the public procurement landscape. And it's quite significant. From the procuring entity perspective, we understand how significant this is. But from a supplier's perspective, it would actually be interesting to find out if you do understand what the implications of this court judgment are. And to maybe start off to assist you. But of course, as I said, in terms of the law of action, more work will need to be done from your side in terms of the research, application, etc. And perhaps consult the experts in these respective legal matters so that you can understand what that entails for you as a prospective supplier. So in this slide, I'm presenting the two documents. So these are the current, on the left are the current, well, the before 16 Feb, these were the regulations that were being used in the public sector landscape. Ne? And then on the right are the draft regulations 2022, which are currently published for comment, and the closing date is the 11th of April 2022. Now, as you can see, the 2022 draft is actually shorter than the 2017 document. And what has been removed, you may wonder, why is this significant? What has been removed are issues around the designated sectors, so the local production and content. This was, if you remember my previous slide of the DTIC, DTIC uses designated sectors to basically try and enable the local manufacturing space to be prioritized when we are procuring goods and services as procuring entities. What that means is, we all understand that you can buy a pair of jeans locally, or you can buy a pair of jeans from Urgant, meaning overseas. But why would you need to buy a pair of jeans overseas when we can produce the same quality locally? So, and if DTIC does not influence state entities or procuring entities to buy from the local industry, I'm sure we can all agree the local industry will collapse, because there'll be more imports than actually procuring entities using the goods and the goods that are produced locally. So the DTIC had put that in place, but as it stands, from what we can see on the draft 2022, it has been removed. And it has also been removed from a perspective of pre-qualification. As you can also see, the second part that has been removed from the draft of 2022 are the pre-qualification criteria. So what organs of state used to do, they will issue a bid and have pre-qualifiers. And pre-qualifiers in their nature, if we have 5 pre-qualifiers and you don't meet all 5, then you get disqualified. But also the 2017 regulations were linking the issue of designated sector, the issue of subcontracting, the issue of empowerment with the pre-qualifiers. Now that has been removed in the draft. So it's, and I'm emphasizing draft because there is still a possibility of commenting on the draft. There's a possibility of commenting on the draft. There's a possibility of still raising your voice. If you are dissatisfied by what the Concord judgment has said, perhaps there's a way that you can raise the concern. I don't know. But again, it goes back to what I presented earlier, the law of action. Are you going to engage the law of action to make your voice heard and to actually bring some influence into the public procurement space? They've also removed objective criteria. Objective criteria enabled were applied wherein a tender would not be awarded to the highest ranking bidder. So this would be a specific goal that the procuring entity is targeting. So they will get to a point where they rank the bidders, and if bidder number one doesn't meet that criteria, then the bid will go to the next ranking bidder who does meet the objective criteria. So that's also gone. The subcontracting as a condition of tender, this is the clause that used to talk about we can include a pre-qualifier that mandates that the bidder, that the main bidder has to subcontract to an entity owned by, in terms of the BE criteria. So that has been removed. So we cannot use that vehicle if these regulations are promulgated as they are. That means it becomes difficult, more difficult to bring in the element of empowerment. And I want to emphasize, presenting in my personal capacity. I am not representing any organ of state. So what you are hearing me say is my opinion alone. So because different entities are responding to this matter in a different way. Then what has also been removed is functionality. This is what we used, is used to assess the technical ability of the bidder. So I'm not sure what its removal means. Does it mean procuring entities can't use functionality? I don't know, but I'm just highlighting to you, if I compare these two documents, here on clause 5 was tenders to be evaluated on functionality. We don't see it on this document, on the draft 2022. The other aspect that has been removed is the cancellation of tender, which does not, I do not see it in the 2022 draft. So in essence, in terms of my opinion, I would advise that you get hold of the Concord judgment, you read the document. That's number one. Number two, you engage the legal experts to assist with interpretation of this Concord judgment. But what I can tell you is that there are certain things we were able to do. When I say we, in this case, as procuring entities, that the procuring entities were able to do, that they will not be able to do anymore in terms of driving the economic transformation agenda. So what it will be left to, it will only be left to the 80-20 and the 90-10 preference point system. If you do not know what I mean by that, you will understand soon enough when I present in the slides to follow. So all of this, Ntando, you are saying, you are telling us this very interesting story. And I mean, with any change, colleagues, any change brings with it an opportunity or a threat, or maybe both, but any change still requires action from our part. So what does it mean for your prospects of doing business with the state? Perhaps as you engage this Concord judgment, ask yourself the question, what does it mean for my prospects of doing business with the state, be it today or sometime in the future? In the absence of broad-based Black economic empowerment criteria included in the tender conditions as envisaged in the PPPFA Regulations 2017, how would doing business with the state proceed? Ask yourself that question. How will it happen? How will the state organs be able to drive transformation in terms of Section 2172 of the Constitution or not? The third question you may ask yourself, what do you think will happen to procurement opportunities between now and until the PPPFA Regulations 2022 are promulgated? As I indicated to you, the Concord judgment of 16 Feb 2022 has actually caused a disruption in the sector. And when I say disruption, not in a negative sense, but they have caused either some entities to stop, some entities are continuing, some entities are waiting to see what will happen, some entities are consulting their legal counsel and so forth, but there is a disruption. We are not operating as normal before the Concord judgment. We are not operating as normal anymore. So you may see some entities still advertising, you may see some entities not advertising for a period, and you will understand that it actually is linked to this Concord judgment. But then, once these regulations that are presented in terms of that schedule, when they are promulgated, what does that mean for your procurement opportunities? This is a question that you need to ask yourself, and perhaps leading me to again ask the same question. And I will be a broken record, colleagues, in terms of implementing the law of action. What are you going to do about the state of affairs in relation to preferential procurement? Earlier, I did present the article. We did see Pete Leroux from Sakaliga saying, finally, a fatal blow has been effected on BEE. That's one view. Another view, what is yours? And what are you going to do about it? And in all of that, my call to you is that you must remember that universal silence must be taken to imply the consent of the people. So if you are not consenting to this, if you are aggrieved by it, it requires action from your part. Because if you remain silent, you are automatically assumed to be consenting to the status quo. We are at a point of no return, colleagues, in terms of this Concord judgment. If we continue to hope for someone else to do the dirty work of influencing what happens in the public sector procurement landscape, the procuring entities are alone in terms of trying to drive certain agendas, but they don't need to be alone if the public starts playing its role and rising up and making certain demands in terms of addressing the historical imbalances of the past. This is my opinion, and I will emphasize for people that have joined in. I'm presenting in my own personal capacity. I'm not representing any organ of state. It's very important that you understand from that perspective. I don't want to be misquoted saying Ntandose said, government is saying, no, that's not what I'm saying. This is my personal opinion, that this Concord judgment, we are at a point of no return. If we continue to be silent, we are going to get what's coming. If we decide to rise up and be men and women, not boys and girls, but be men and women and stand up for what we know is right, this is the time. There's no other time to do it. Now, moving on to the procurement process. Here, this first slide is really talking to what are the general prerequisites? What are the basics that you must get right? These, honestly, if you don't have this right, please don't bother. Again, my opinion, just go and get these things right before you submit a bid or a quotation, because we also don't want you to be wasting the procuring entity's time and your time putting it together a document that will land you nowhere. So first and foremost, company registration. And who does that? You can do that through the Companies and Intellectual Property Commission. You must be a registered company, be it Pty Limited or whatever type of entity, NPC, whatever it is, get registered. So you need that registration. And I've put these links here so that you understand that there is more information contained elsewhere. I'm not going to be presenting specifics of how to register a company, but I'm pointing you to, if you are interested in participating in procurement opportunities of the state, you need to be a registered company. It just makes things easier like that. Number two, you must be registered for tax. And not only registered, you must maintain a compliant status. Number two, you must be VAT registered. Again, please refer to SARS as to who must be VAT registered or not. It's not always that all suppliers must be VAT registered, but go and read up. Remember, I said the law of action. Go and read up as to what type of entity will you be if you are going to be starting to register as a new entity, or if you are an existing supplier, find out if perhaps you are missing this one little aspect. Perhaps you are operating already above the threshold, which warrants that you must be VAT registered. So go and do that homework and get that right. Number three, register in the National Treasury Central Supplier Database. This is a critical requirement, colleagues. If you are not registered in the CSD, some entities actually don't even want to talk to you. In terms of the instruction note from National Treasury, it says we must not award to a supplier that's not registered in the CSD. But some entities actually don't even want to engage you if you are not registered. So they won't even wait for you to be in line to be awarded so that you can register. They just want to engage you. So this is critical that you adhere to. Number 4, if your company works in the construction and engineering sectors, or you are offering goods, services or works in relation to the construction and engineering sectors, go and read up on the CIDB's requirements, because you need to have certain gradings. When the procuring entities advertise works, they will state a CIDB grading, and that is a requirement. It's not optional. So if you don't have that grading, you will not be able to participate in that procurement opportunity. Or if you are a grading 1 instead of a grading 4, if we are looking for a grading 4, that means just don't waste your time and waste the procuring entity's time. Don't submit for work that is of a larger CIDB grading than you have. Then lastly is the BBBE certification. And please refer to the BBBE regulations and sector-specific codes, because that's also what you need to be aware of. As a company, you need to be certified in terms of BBBE. But there are some entities that only need a sworn affidavit, and these are the exempted micro enterprises. But all this information, for you to know where you are placed, go and do the homework in terms of the BBBE certification process. Because you might, if you miss that mark, you might submit a sworn affidavit when you actually should be submitting a SANAS accredited BBBE certificate. So these are really the prerequisites. If you don't have this, perhaps just go and get it done, then come back and look for opportunities and start making your submissions. In terms of the simplified procurement process, and again, going back to the earlier the slides on preferential procurement, I'm in a very tight situation. I'm presenting on what used to happen under these 2017 regulations, but also understanding that we are in that point of transition to something new at some point. So right now, today, Ntandose is presenting on what used to happen when the 2017 regulations were not declared null and void by the Concord on the 16th of February, 2022. But not all is lost, because you still need to understand there are some works that are currently advertised that were advertised before this ruling, and they would basically be following this process. So some of them are still open today. I will be presenting to you where you can access some of these opportunities, etc. Now, what happens when a procuring entity requires goods and services? We go from needs identification. So as a procuring entity, we identify the goods, services, or works that we require. We then develop what we call a scope of work. Once we have done that, we move to the sourcing stage, where we prepare the documentation, we state the criteria, the evaluation criteria, we issue to the market, and we receive the market responses. And of course, receiving the market responses is something that you as a supplier would be doing. You will be submitting to the procuring entity that in response to your request for quotations, procuring entity A, herewith is my my response. There's my quotation. I've seen your evaluation criteria. Here are my documents proving that I qualify. Then we move on to the stage of evaluation. We implement pre-qualifiers where they are applicable, functionality where it's applicable, and then the preference point system. That one is not optional, it's mandatory. And then we move on. Once we've done all of that, we will have a ranking, and the work will be given to the highest ranking bidder unless we are applying objective criteria. Now, all evaluation criteria, including objective criteria, must be stated in the request for quotation or the tender document issued by the procuring entity. I will caution, I know some of us are joining in when I've already passed a particular stage of the presentation. I am presenting this based on the regulations that are affected by the Concord judgment of 16 February 2022. So you must take that into account. I can't present what is going to happen because it has not yet happened. I can only present what used to happen before the Concord judgment. And from there, you might draw some guidance in terms of what is expected. Now, I'm going to dissect each phase step by step. So the scope of work, colleagues, you find this in the bidding documents that are issued by the procuring entity. What is key for you is that you understand what the procuring entity wants. Do they want goods? Do they want services? Do they want works? Can I be assisted with the muting there, please? Thank you. Is it all of the above? I'm wearing earphones, colleagues, so any noise is quite loud from my side. I trust that you'll understand. So is it goods, services, or works, or is it all of the above? And again, what is your niche as a business? What is it that you are bringing forth to the table? And you must be very careful that you don't become a jack of all trades, because it then affects the quality that you will be putting forth to the procuring entity. Procuring entities are guided by the applicable laws and their respective policies on what can be issued through RFQ and through tendering system. And I will give you an example. So when we say RFQ or a tender are separated by a threshold, an amount, a value, a rand value. So in this table, I'm showing you an example. Not all entities have the same procurement threshold. So the procurement thresholds differ in entirety. Some entities are regulated by National Treasury, some entities are not in terms of the threshold. So in this example, the transaction values valued up to 1 million are the ones that are classified as RFQ. Anything above 1 million classified as a bid or a tender. But now you must refer to each entity's procurement policy or SCM policy to understand why they would publish something as an RFQ rather than as a bid or vice versa. And of course, if you are dealing with RFQ, there's a different way of processing these transactions. In terms of the advertisement method, it will be dictated by the entity's procurement policy. Some entities publish their RFQs on the organizational websites and the National Treasury e-tender publication portal. For construction and engineering related RFQs, these must be advertised in the CIDB website. And then in terms of the advertisement period, again, this is dictated for RFQs by the entity's SCM policy. And you will also find that period on the advertisement. So you will find a closing date and so forth. And it's usually minimum a week. At times for some entities, it's about 3 days of the period of advertisement. So you don't have a long time to actually prepare your documents. If you go back to what I said in that first slide, your prerequisites, get those documents ready every single day because you don't know what procurement opportunity will arise. Bids and tenders are treated slightly differently. So if it's above the threshold for RFQs, then you will find that some entities, well, one, there is a requirement that tenders are advertised openly and they are advertised in the e-tender publication portal of the National Treasury. Some entities also publish RFQs. Oh, sorry, I think that was a copy and paste error. So some entities also publish bids, not RFQs, on their organizational websites. So they will have to meet this requirement and they then also advertise on their own websites. I know ESCOM does load their tender documents on their own website, not e-tender, but they do advertise. They place the advert on the e-tender publication portal. And then again, for construction and engineering related bids, these must be posted on the CIDB website. And then the advertisement period for bids or tenders, again, is as per the procuring entity's SCM policy, so you would have to know that. And then this will be stated also on the advertisement, and it's usually a minimum of 21 calendar days. But not all entities will have the same period. So you will have to take note of the advert to see and mark the closing date so that you don't miss the closing date. Right. So with all that I've said, there are procuring entities are able to also use what we call deviations to obtain goods or services. So these are deviations that are allowable in terms of the laws that the National Treasury has set. Some of these deviations require National Treasury's prior approval, some of them don't. So when we say deviations, this is what we mean. One of the deviations is sole sourcing, and it's applicable where a supplier is proven to be the only producer of goods and services required by the procuring entity. And then in single sourcing, it's applicable where a procuring entity prefers a supplier with justifiable reasons for appointing that one supplier. We then also have closed bidding. So this is, instead of going out on open bidding or open tender, the procuring entity approaches a group of suppliers with justifiable reasons for doing so. And deviations are not openly issued to the market. However, procuring entities publish the awards made through deviations on the e-tender publication portal. So, yes, in as much as the Constitution talks about the principles of fairness, transparency, competitiveness, there are instances where that does not apply. And those are allowable in terms of the National Treasury prescripts. Single sourcing and closed bidding require prior approval from the National Treasury. Depending on the thresholds also, some of them are in single sourcing, some of them are approvable by the entity. So, and above a certain threshold, they need to go to National Treasury. So these are the points where your homework needs to go to. Yeah? And I will be assisting you with the links. But let me just, before moving on to the next slide, demonstrate the e-tender publication portal of National Treasury. So, Chair, can you confirm that you can see the web page that I've displayed?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. So this is the e-tender publication portal, colleagues. If you do a Google search, e-tenders South Africa or something, you will find it. If you say National Treasury e-tender, you will find it. But it's etenders.gov.za. So this is where you will be searching for your opportunities. And as I said in the previous slide, some entities publish RFQs also in here. Some entities don't. But what must be published are the tenders. So that is a general rule. Tenders must be published in this portal. So you can either choose by and I won't make this a how to use e-tenders. Again, when you go and do your research, you will find out how to use e-tenders. I will use an entity called Magali's Water so that you can see whether they have any opportunities today that are live. It looks like they do. So they've got something to do with valve automation. So if your company does something like that, you might be interested in that. There's something about supply, delivery, and installation of clip drift water treatment plant. And you must then also be cautious that there is a closing date. And the beauty about the upgraded e-tender publication portal is that it actually tells you that something is closing in a few days. Compared to what it was before. So they've actually done some interesting improvements on this e-tender publication portal. If you are not going to search by a specific entity and you just want to do a quick search, just go to browse opportunities and you will see what is currently advertised. It will then bring you the entire list after it stops buffering. It will show you that there are more than 870 currently active procurement opportunities across all sectors. So this is your go-to if you are looking for procurement opportunities. It's basically your primary. And then when you're talking about RFQs, this is where you will need to look at each entity's procurement policy in terms of how they advertise RFQs. But the other place, if you are in the construction and engineering sector, is the CIDB website. And that is the website for public tenders, tender search. So this is where you will then go to find what, I mean, if you have again, I will not make this as a how to use the CIDB tender portal. That you will do as the homework, your homework in terms of applying the law of action. But what I am pointing to you is that there is a way of finding government procurement opportunities. And these two National Treasury one is generic, so it includes also CIDP related ones. But then the CIDP, if you are purely a construction and engineering company, then might as well just go on CIDP. You can use them interchangeably, there's no issue there. But also watch out for each entity's website, because some entities do post these opportunities on their website, so you can also go to the respective entity's website. But what they did with the e-tender publication portal, the National Treasury, that is, they wanted an easier way for suppliers to access procurement opportunities. So perhaps this is where your law of action comes in. Perhaps you could influence that all government advertises in one portal. Maybe that's a call you can make. But it will not happen by osmosis. It will happen when there is a demand for it. Then laws can be written. Or if you are fine with the status quo, then perhaps you don't need to influence it at all. Then I will also present the Central Supplier Database website. You will find that at secure.csd.gov.za. This is the website where you have to go and register if you are currently not registered in it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that means you are not registered on CSD. But if you do, then it's good. You are good to go. But if you don't know, then please go and click that beautiful part that's called register. And perhaps even start with help and find out what on earth is CSD. CSD is the database for the South African government, and that's where all suppliers that want to do business with the state must register. If you are not registered there, you will not get a procurement award. It's as simple as that. You will not. Because I did give the warning that some entities actually don't even want to deal with the supplier that's not on the CSD. So I trust that that's providing some guidance in terms of where you can obtain opportunities and etc. Now, procuring entities include evaluation criteria in their bidding documents. As I've indicated earlier, you may find pre-qualifiers, and these must be met in totality. If you have 5 and you only meet 4, you are disqualified. So if you are going to be looking at the pre-qualification criteria in a bid, make sure you meet all of them. Then we've got functionality. Functionality usually have a minimum qualifying score that you must meet. So if you don't meet the minimum qualifying score, you will be disqualified. Again, you would have wasted your time and the procuring entity's time. Again, we are trying to assist one another to be as efficient as possible. There are people that complain about tenders in government taking long, but honestly, at times it is worsened by submissions that are literally wasting time. Where a supplier was just taking a chance, we hope for the best. Can you please not hope for the best? You must, if you are going to be submitting to government, make sure it's something you qualify for, make sure you submit the documents that the procuring entity is asking you for, so that we are not wasting time on 500 submissions that are not meeting the requirements, while we could have spent the time on the 50 that do. And then the preference point system, this is mandatory for procuring entities to include in the bidding documents. I again add the caution. I'm basing this on the regulations that were in effect before the the Concord judgment, of the 16th of February. So this results in the ranking of bidders where the award will be given to the highest ranked bidder unless objective criteria are applied. And then the objective criteria, as I've indicated before, they may result in the award not being made to the highest ranking bidder. We are still on the sourcing side. So some procuring entities issue printed bid documents. Some of them charge a fee for bid documents. Some of them advertise RFQs openly. Some of them advertise on print media, so your newspapers, in addition to the other mandatory advertisement platforms. But other entities, other procuring entities no longer issue printed bid documents. So you have to be aware of that. Though it's not an anomaly, unfortunately, it is what it is. One entity will say, for you to get the bid document, it's 500 Rand and you must fetch it from our head office. Another entity will say, well, here is the document on the e-tender publication portal. Yeah? And then other procuring entities, they exactly as I've said, they avail the bid documents either on their organizational websites or the e-tender publication portal, or both. So you have to be sensitive to that. Now, this I took from the e-tender publication portal, as an example of what I've just presented, that procuring entities don't do it the same way, ne? In terms of how they are regulated. Now, this is the Katlong local municipality. I think it's in the Northern Cape, and they have advertised. They loaded this actually on the e-tender publication portal. They are showing you what it is that they want. They want registered land surveyor. They want service providers to be included in a panel for electrical contractors. They want provision of security guards. Now, if you want to participate in this, they are already telling you the evaluation criteria, number one. They will be using 80-20 in terms of the regulations, the functionality and triple BE, etc. For the one of electrical contractors, they're even telling you they want CITP 4 EP or higher. Go and do your homework, what that means. This is the grading I was talking to earlier. So if you are in the construction and engineering sector, these are things that you need to know. And then they are also going to be evaluating it on functionality and triple BE. But if you are a jack of all trades, which I caution against, honestly, it's my opinion, I caution against it, you must have a niche. You can have supplementary services and goods and so forth that you offer, but decide what it is that you want to contribute to society and make that work. But if you are a jack of all trades, that means you'll be paying 550 times 3 to access a bid document from the Katlong local municipality. But if you are only going to participate in the security guards, that means you need to pay 550. They also then tell you about the conditions that apply. They tell you how you must submit. If you're going to do by post, this is what you must do. These are the conditions that will apply. What are they saying? They're saying bids must only be submitted on the bid document provided by the Katlong local municipality. So you must not be submitting in your own version. Persons in the service of the state are not allowed to bid. This is their condition. By the way, this condition that they are mentioning is linked to legislation. So since I'm still working for a public, well, an organ of state, I can't participate in state procurement. I can't now submit a quotation to any government entity. Attach original certified ID documents. If they say original certified, colleagues, they mean original. So just submit exactly as what they are saying you must do, and so forth. So if you read further, you will get more information on this. And of course, another thing that you need to be sensitive of, the Katlong local municipality is in the Northern Cape. So if you are based in Gauteng and that is your base, and you don't have any other branches, satellite branches or anything like that, and there is no way that you can provide security services in Northern Cape, please do not waste the Katlong local municipality's time and submit a bid only to find that you won't even be able to offer the service. And you would have wasted 550 rand anyway. Then I wanted to demonstrate also an opportunity relating to CIDB. What I said earlier, they will publish on CIDB and also on e-tender publication. So in this case, we've got Magali's Water that is looking for supply delivery installation of plant fencing in drift water treatment. This they've advertised in CIDB. So this screenshot is actually from the CIDB. And then they've also advertised the same thing in the e-tender publication portal. Now, what is important for you to also understand is that you need to read this part. This is not a decoration, colleagues. They are telling you who's advertising. They're telling you what is it? It's a bid or it's an RFQ. So in this case, it's a bid. They're telling you which province the works are required. They're telling you when they published it. So they published on the 1st of March, after even the court judgment. So this is one of those entities that are still advertising, regardless of the court judgment. We don't know how they've crafted their response around the court judgment, but it is what it is. And the closing date of this bid is the 23rd of March, 2022. It looks like they are employing the 21 turnaround time rule in this case. Then you will see the contact person. Usually they will have it as either the buyer concerned or whichever supply chain practitioner. If you have inquiries, you need to contact this person, send an email. And I advise that when you are inquiring, put it in writing. Then if there's a briefing session, you will see it under this section. In this case, there is a briefing session. Then they are telling you it is compulsory. They are telling you the briefing date and time. So today is the 13th of March. If you could have provided them this service or these works, you've missed the the briefing date, the briefing session date, which is the 9th of March. And actually they held it as a virtual meeting date. I mean, virtual meeting. So you need to read this. It's not there just, and you need to make sure that you meet this closing date. You meet whatever criteria that they have put in. You also need to open, let me just go back here. I don't want you to miss this aspect. Colleagues, there's a portion called tender documents there at the bottom. This is where entities will load either their tender documents or the advert. Or because the advert will then contain even more information, where to get documents, etc., etc. So also watch out for that portion where they are telling you about the tender documents. I'm also then projecting another advert, and this one has to do with professional services. This is from the Competition Commission. It's from the e-tender publication portal. This was advertised before the Concord judgment, meaning that this will be evaluated according to the regulations 2017. So if you are interested in this, it's closing on the 15th of April. So there's still time for you to submit if you do anything around whatever work that they are requesting from you. And they're looking for document security and data loss prevention system. So that's what they are looking for. They don't have a compulsory meeting and so forth. So I hope that it is assisting you when you are going to be interacting with the e-tender publication portal, what to be looking out for. Nothing is by chance. Read and understand what it is that the procuring entity is communicating. Chair, I apologize. It seems I'm still going to take just a little bit more time than the 45 minutes.
Okay, it's fine. Let's see how we go.
Thank you. So in the bidding document of the procuring entity, you will see they'll tell you what evaluation criteria they are going to follow. In this Competition Commission example, they are telling you these are the pre-qualifiers. They are telling you that. So they are telling you the supplier must be registered on CST. This is their pre-qualified. So if you are marking no, you are going to waste your time and the time of the Competition Commission. If you are not registered, go get registered on the CST so that you can mark this as a yes. They are saying you must be compliant with your tax obligations, you must submit your PIN, etc., etc. If you don't have it, don't waste your time and the entity's time, just move on. Certified ID copies not older than 3 months, you must meet that. It's a pre-qualifier, you must meet this requirement. Bidders are required to submit original or certified valid BEE certificates or sworn affidavit or certified copies, meet that requirement. If you don't, then you would have wasted a lot of people's time. On functionality evaluation, if it's applicable, they will also include it as Competition Commission has included it in this case. So they are already telling you this will be evaluated in 80-20, and they are telling you the minimum threshold you must meet is 75 points. They are telling you how, minimum threshold is 75 to be shortlisted for presentation, but for functionality, it's 80 points. So you have to have, if you have passed the pre-qualification stage, you still need to go through the functionality and you must have minimum 80 points to move to the next stage. And they are telling you how they are going to be scoring the functionality criteria. Now, what are these criteria? These criteria, according to them, are exactly as they have mentioned them. So you will see something similar in other procuring entities documents if they do have functionality criteria. So in this case, they want to know about your experience and they are telling you 5 years experience. So if you don't have it, colleagues, I can tell you are not going to score the highest mark here. Methodology, they are saying it must be detailed and so forth. They will apply their scoring and they will give you a score. So ultimately, at the end of the day, after they've exercised all of these criteria, you must come out with a minimum of 80 points. If you don't, then you are disqualified. Once you've got your minimum points, you move and you've got the minimum points as indicated in the procuring entity. Remember, this is them now evaluating, but you need to understand what is happening in the background so that if you are not getting a procurement opportunity, either you've missed it in the pre-qualifiers or you've missed it in the functionality, or you've missed it in the preference point system. It's not because they don't like you, it's because perhaps there's a point where you would have missed it. Or it's to assist you not to continue missing the mark, so that you understand how it's done. The preference point system, we talk about 80-20 or 90-10, depending on the value of the works. So if the value of the works is less than 50 million, but above 30,000 Rand, then we will use the 80-20. If it's more than 50 million, we use the 90-10. And when we say 80, the 80 is coming from this equation. The 20 is coming from this table. This table is based on your BEE status level of contributor. If you note, even if you are not a compliant supplier, we will not disqualify you unless the entity has put that as a pre-qualifier, colleagues. That is between the procuring entity and the procuring entity. Some entities do not do that. Some entities don't make BEE a pre-qualifier, in terms of you must be compliant. No, they don't do that because they know that later in the preference point system, they are going to separate the men from the boys. 90-10, the 90 comes from this equation, which is based on the price, and then the 10 is based on the BEE certificate. And I'll bring an example. This is the 80-20 example. Again, this applies for transactions that are 30,000 to 50 million. I want, as a show of, in terms of the chat, can you quickly put in the chat, which supplier has the lowest price? Is it ABC, DEF, GHI, or JKL? Which supplier has the lowest price? All right, I've got a response, JKL. Do I have an opposing? Or the same? Can I have another response? Then we can move. All right, thank you, colleagues. So the supplier with the lowest price is indeed JKL. And in terms of this calculation is based on, as it explains to you, the price of the tender under consideration and the price of the lowest tender. So all we do as procuring entities, we take the lowest price, put it under P-min. We take the price of the tender under review. So if I'm reviewing ABC, I put 140 minus 100,000 over 100,000. And that quotient, I will subtract from 1. So it's 1 minus the quotient, and then times 80. So what it means, colleagues, and if you ever make an application to an organ of state of their evaluation calculations, you need to understand what you are looking at. So the supplier with the lowest price will always get the 80 points, the full 80 points. The suppliers with then the next lowest price will get the next points. The supplier with the next lowest price and so forth. So the one with the highest price will get the lowest price points. And then in terms of the BEE level, I've used an example where one is a 1148. And of course, if you are just looking from price, you will assume that JKL will win the tender. That's your assumption. But the problem is JKL has level 8. And level 8, in terms of this table, only gives him 2 points. And now his total points are 82. Now, what do you see here? Who are we going to award to? Remember, we award to the highest ranked bidder. I just need 2 responses. Who, in terms of this table, are we going to award to? GHI. All right, I've got 2 responses and they're saying GHI, and you are correct. This is assuming there will not be any objective criteria that are applied. This is assuming even if they are applied, GHI will comply with those objective criteria. So yes, indeed, GHI in terms of this table would be the one that we then approach to award. And how? What happened here? What happened is that regardless that JKL had the lowest price, regardless, they did not win. Why? Because they missed it on the level, the BE level. Now, when you do your homework, go and find out how to get the highest BEE level. Make sure in terms of your sector-specific codes, you comply with the provisions of those codes so that you are sitting at least at a level 1 or a level 2. Interestingly enough, for exempted micro enterprises, the CIPC also assists in generating the triple BEE certificate for you. So it's generated by them in their template and so forth. So go and do that homework, but I'm already giving you some pointers. In terms of the 90-10, similar principle, the supplier with the lowest price, in this case, APC, gets the highest price points. And then we allocate the BEE points in terms of the BEE level using this table. So in this case, ABC basically gets awarded if it was work that was above 50 million. Now, everything is done, GHI or APC are up for appointment. Make sure that if you get to this stage, colleagues, and I really wish that for all of you sitting here, that at some point you will get an award from a government opportunity. Make sure you get hold of something we call a letter of appointment, and make sure that you get your contract signed by both parties. Make sure that you understand the terms and conditions. Not at award, understand them as you are bidding. Ne? If there's anything that you need to qualify, etc., you need to qualify it at the time that you are bidding, not after. Ne? Awarded tenders are published on the National Treasury e-tender publication. And just to quickly show you the awarded tenders, if you are looking for that, there it is. So you will just click on awarded, and you will see all the tenders that have been awarded by the state. Then we are done with the procurement process. So quickly, let's go through the pitfalls. So in the age of information, ignorance is a choice. This is a quote by a fellow called Donald Miller. So colleagues, the major pitfall of suppliers when they are participating in government opportunities is ignorance. And ignorance is an intentional act. It's not, there's not knowing, and then there's willingly not knowing. So when you are in an age of information, you can't say, I don't know. Have you searched? So if you don't know, then your ignorance is actually a deliberate choice. So what are the pitfalls? One, this is Ntandose's assessment based on the experience she has had in the public sector, looking at what suppliers do, etc. So one, being a jack of all trades. And how you overcome this pitfall. Remember, this affects the quality that you ultimately offer the procuring entity. If you are focusing on supplying butter, then on the other hand, you are supplying meat, then you are supplying PPE, then you're supplying stationery, then you're also constructing fencing and so forth. And colleagues, don't misunderstand me. I know we try and broaden our view so that we can grab hold of the opportunities as much as we can. But be very careful that you don't compromise the quality of your different trades. That is really the essence of what I'm saying to you today. Decide what the core focus of your business is. Identify the supplementary offerings that don't deviate from your core offering. And you don't know everything, né, colleagues? Get assistance from specialists, i.e. your accountants, your legals, and etc. So there are certain things that you will not know. And this is where it's important to work together. You know, give that graduate who has gone through school an exercise. She's looking for work. Maybe even if it's a piece job, but give them the opportunity to experience, you know, and use that which they've been taught and see how they come to assist you. But also, of course, you will not place your entire company on a graduate, but I'm saying there are many ways of assisting our community in terms of what we do individually. 4.2, not respecting your time and the procuring entity's time. Submitting for work your business does not qualify for. Ne? Please, colleagues have hammered on this quite a lot. Incomplete submissions, please don't waste your time and the procuring entity's time. And it does reflect badly on you as a company. It affects your reputation. We do not forget people that don't submit properly. There's just something about that name that will forever stick, that this person actually wasted time. 4.3, missing deadlines. The closing dates are there for a reason. They are not optional, colleagues. Even expected delivery dates, once you actually have been awarded work, they are not optional. You need to honor all of those things. Ignorance of laws, policies, and procedures. I think there I just forgot to update the sub-bullets, but you have to know what laws regulate the sector you are working in. Number two, the laws that regulate the entity you are submitting to. You have to be aware of the policies and procedures, not only of your own company. And if you don't have them, please do have policies and procedures in your company. Many of the functionality requirements require that you produce policies and procedures of your own company. But also really key is understanding how the person or the entity you are submitting to, how they are regulated and what it means and how you align to that. The other pitfall is an unhealthy definition of success. I've put the picture there of Konka. Ne? If your definition of success as a starting business is how quickly I can get to Konka, nothing wrong with Konka. We love Konka. I personally have not been to Konka, but I've heard quite a lot from Konka. But if you are a starting business and you've just, fortunately, you get an award from the state of 1 million rand, Konka is not the place to go. It's 1 million rand. And from that 1 million rand, you need to implement the work. So you need to prioritize the implementation of the work. And then your profit is something else. But your profit, you have to understand that it needs to sustain your business. So if you don't have a healthy definition of success, that we have seen as one major pitfall of companies. And many companies don't recover from that. If you are not able to execute a contract, many of the functionality criteria across state organs talk to your performance in a previous contract. Ne? So you have to take that into account. Do not waste an opportunity whenever you get awarded a tender by the state or an RFQ. Don't waste that opportunity. Use it to build your profile. So you need to have a healthy financial management in your company. You need to stop wanting to look successful at the expense of not delivering on the contract. And looking successful over building a legacy, decide which one you want. But if you are choosing the looking successful, I can guarantee you there's not much that you will do, or it's not long that you will survive. So nothing wrong with Konka, I repeat, but we must just be cognizant of when you are awarded business by the state, that money is primarily to implement the contract that you have been awarded. Secondarily is to then take your profit. But your profit, don't forget, you must plant it back to your business. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm advising purely from a perspective that we have observed over the years. Well, I have observed in terms of the experience I've had in the public sector. Number 6, prioritizing competition over partnership. Many suppliers miss out on opportunities to partner with other suppliers. Ne? You take work. Let's say we need to build a sports center. You know you don't have that, you don't have all the capabilities. That is an opportunity to partner with another supplier that has that capability. So you must build on other strengths. This thing of prioritizing competition, wanting to seem like I'm more successful than Emmanuel, that is an attitude, colleagues, that I would really implore you to surrender to something even better. We need to understand that there's power in partnership. And when it comes to government opportunities, I cannot emphasize it more than enough. Of course, you need to be sensitive as to who you choose as a partner. You need to know how it works in terms of if you are going to do a joint venture and all of those things, the different vehicles of partnering together. You need to go and do that research, but don't always feel the pressure of wanting to prove Uguti are more successful than Lutando. So find ways of actually partnering together. That also gives you a benefit. Then the last pitfall is this, the government must mentality. Yeah? Being passive when the legislative landscape changes and hoping for someone else to come to the rescue. No one is going to rescue what the Concord judgment did. No one, there's no savior that's going to come and make the Concord to reverse the decision. Only the residents or citizens of South Africa can do that. So I'm just using it as a proposition. So we need to move beyond what we know. We always talk, you know, hey, Tina, abantu abamnyama, oh, hey, we do this, we don't do that. Stop talking. What are we going to do about it? It's the law of action, colleagues. Thought, emotion, and action. Lastly, the pointers. Quickly. So, and the good thing is that I've summarized them into one slide. Number 1, what you need to know to engage the business, doing business with the state. 1, information. The media cannot be your main source of information. Read for yourself and or get expert advice on whatever arena or whatever sector or whatever aspect. If it's, go and get a tax expert to assist you. Yes, it takes money sometimes to get a skill. So the next one is terms and conditions. State any deviations from the scope of work or conditions at the time of submitting your bid. But you need to be careful. Don't deviate in a way that if we are saying we want a pair of jeans, and when you say, I'll give you shorts, no, that's not what we want. So a deviation can be something like perhaps the material, the denim, might actually be even of a better quality that I'm giving you. So you are slightly deviating from perhaps if I don't speak denim, but I'm just mentioning that in terms of maybe if it's quality X, you are giving us quality X squared, you know? So you must state that I'm not gonna give you X, I'm actually gonna give you to something better at this price. So you must state that when you are submitting your bid. Number 3, communication tools. Ensure you are accessible. Ensure you are using a stable mobile number. Colleagues, we cannot, we don't know you. Procuring entities don't know you. So if you're not going to answer that call, you might just miss an opportunity. An email address, make sure it's a stable email address. If you are paying a hosting service, make sure you pay that hosting service. Make sure you are not down at any point in time, because procuring entities communicate to you through your contact information. Ensure you have online meeting platforms such as Microsoft Teams and Zoom on your devices, because at any point, perhaps they might be seeking clarity from you, or you are attending a compulsory briefing session and things like those. Since we are now in this different way of working where we're doing virtual meetings, etc., those now have become quite critical to have. Number 4, inquiries. Where you don't understand, seek clarity in writing from the person that is indicated in the tender advert or the documentation. Also, don't be afraid of using the Promotion of Access to Information Act, the applications that you can make. For example, if you've submitted a bid and you want to understand where you missed it, you were not awarded the bid, where you missed it, you can make a PIA application so that you can understand, where did I miss it? Can you give me your evaluation sheet so that I can see who made it where and so forth? Please give me your BAC minutes. That's what PIA applications are there for. And of course, they will be approved or maybe approved with condition by the entities, but they are available. I can tell you for a fact, a lot of information is required by journalists almost on a daily basis from procuring entities through this very process of the Promotion of Access to Information Act. So we call it PIA in short. So don't be afraid to ask for information from the state as to where did I miss it and how did this bidder become the awarded bidder, but where did I miss it myself, you know? And then number 5, attend the briefing sessions, whether they're compulsory or not, attend them. If you do get the fortune to be awarded the contract, at implementation, just a caution, do not do additional work before your contract value is officially increased and you are issued with confirmation. What I mean there may be instances where you may be asked to do more than the scope of work. Don't go ahead and do it. Do it after either the purchase order or they give you maybe another document, but usually they will update your purchase order with the additional amount. Wait for that to happen before you implement that additional work. Otherwise, you may find yourself not being paid for a very long time. And then always honor your contract obligations. Lastly, partnerships, colleagues. I'm bringing this part, I brought it as a pitfall. The fact that people are not partnering, I'm bringing it as a pointer. You must partner. You must partner. I'm going to use an example. Agribusiness NPC, the one that took the Minister of Finance to court, I think it was in 2019 or 2020, I stand corrected, between those 2 years. That's where this issue first appeared in the courts of South Africa, in the Supreme Court. So they took the Minister of Finance and they challenged the Minister of Finance that you don't have the power to actually dictate how entities must issue bids in terms of pre-qualifiers. And this issue of BEE is not consistent with the Constitution, you know, those kind of things. These are people that came together and submitted something. And they made a huge change in how government is going to procure in the future. Now, if you don't understand that happened because people, not a person, people came together of one mind, of one accord, and said, we have identified something that has gone wrong and we want it corrected. They came and did it. But if you are going to sit and say, the government is doing this to us, I am telling you, then you deserve what is coming to you. But if you are going to say, hold on, okay, I see the judgment, but no, I don't agree. No, this must be taken on appeal. Instead of going to conquer, maybe direct your monies together as suppliers and assist the Minister of Finance to actually challenge this judgment. I'm using it as an example. So the law of action requires whose action, not someone else's action. It's your action, and as a collective, our action for the common cause. Other resources, colleagues, you need to know, as an active citizen of this country, if you are a supplier, you must be an active citizen of this country. Where you get your X is on the government website, which is www.gov.za. Government gazettes, you must be sitting and looking at what government is gazetting at any given point in time. And that you get from the government printing works. Circulars, instructions, and regulations on public sector procurement are contained in the National Treasury's website, the Chief Procurement Officer's website. What I will do, since I will not be sharing these slides, I will share all of these links in a summarized format so that at least you have that document, even if I don't give you all my slides. I will give you a compressed document with all these links so that you can just easily click to research further. Ngiyabonga.
Siyabonga kakhulu, Ntandose, thank you very much for such detailed presentation when it comes to procurement, procuring with the state. And I think you've started right from the beginning throughout until the end. And I like the premise that you started with in terms of the thought, and then after that the emotions, and then after that you get to the action. Without the action, nothing is going to happen. I think as a SALGC, we're also sharing information with people, but we're saying the information without the action is useless. And I think you've nailed it there. And I appreciate also to tell us to say there's a saying in English that says the jack of all trades. You're chasing all those, but you are becoming a master of none. So it's important that you understand and identify the market that you want to be part of. And I think also to say, if we are not doing anything about it, nothing is going to happen. And complaining about Twitter and what, it doesn't help, because the actual challenge needs to go to court, for instance, and that is expensive. You can't go alone, so you need to partnership. And I think there's a lot of opportunity that we lose, especially in the black communities where we do not partner together. If I know it's easier to lose weight by eating veggies only, I do not share that, because I just want to be the one who's tall and handsome, without sharing that with other people. I'm using that as an example, but you can see for yourself. But yeah, I think it's very important that what we are sharing, to say, let's share. This is an opportunity for us to understand the environment that we need to procure with. Unfortunately, as has summarized for us the issue of the challenging the state, and that is simply looks like the black man is on their own, because the big companies mostly are dominantly white than the small ones, and the opportunities that are coming through the subcontracting conditions as the subcontracting seem to be getting lost in the process. But I think let's get the questions, and thank you very much. We appreciate what you've shared with us. Let me see if there are any questions, any contributions. Can I see by a raise of hands in terms of this? Any hands, any comment, any contributions? There are people that I think I'll point that could contribute. We're not there yet. Any contributions, any questions, any take home points? I think if you look at the pitfalls, also not respecting your time and just being everywhere, I took that. it's important that you read for yourself rather than hoping someone will tell you what needs to happen, because that's where we lose it. And also prioritizing, you want to compete with people instead of partnering with them. There's a saying that says there's strength in numbers. So I think that is very important that we become part of that. And understanding your own conquer, because you can't say, because you get, as you say, 1 million, and then you go and buy 1 million car, and only to find that the money that will come to you of that 1 million, maybe it's 20,000 if we are lucky. So I think that is a big take home for me. Any other comments? If there's no comments, there are two things possible in Tandos. One could be that you are so much on point that there's no question, or we are so confused that we don't even know where to start asking a question. Kulangwane, my senior, you are first, and then Makhomo Modiba second. You unmute yourself, Mr. Makubalo, and then give us an opinion.
Oh, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for a great presentation. I just need to understand from the presenter, we do have various pieces of legislation which are aimed at empowerment of Black people. However, when you look at the DTI and the DMRE, we don't seem to have, consistency. In the DTI, we're looking at the levels, level 1 to 9. And in the DMRE as well, we also have a particular focus on equity ownership. Now, a lot of companies, and I would say those companies that are white owned, they, go into a situation where they comply with the BBBE Act and forget about the ownership part. In other words, if they would have to be compliant in terms of ownership, they would only get to 26%, and it ends there. Is there a way of actually pushing the issue of equity ownership amongst Black companies? That is the first question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Let me give Makhomo an opportunity to ask, and then we'll give Ntandos to respond. Makhomo, can you unmute and ask your question or contribution?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask, in terms of these small Lanyana businesses that we encounter, the ones that would have a work opportunity for less than 100,000, they don't seem to be interested in, this supplier general prerequisite compliances. How do we encourage them? How do we make sure that they know that it is important for them to register a company, to have a tax registration, to have, their company registered on the central supply database, and all of this CIDB and BBEC certification, because it seems sort of an issue for them. How do we then go about encouraging them to actually have these compliances in place for them to actually be able to have work or do work with the state? Thank you.
Thank you, Makhomo. Ntandos?
Thank you. If I understood the first question from Mr. Kulangane correctly, I'm going to attempt to answer it. I'm not really that experienced in terms of minerals and resources. But what I do know in terms of BE levels or the BE cause of good practice, they are actually there are those that are sector specific. For example, where in the procuring entity or entities that I've worked in, one, we are not measured on ownership, because we are state owned. I mean, there's no Black ownership or even white ownership. We are not owned by people. We are owned by the state. So we are not measured on ownership. That's number one. But we are measured on management. So how many people, Africans, are on management levels in terms of the target, skills development, how many people are we empowering, enterprise and supplier development, how many entities owned by Black people are we empowering, and the socioeconomic development element. So out of your normal generic generic scorecard, procuring entities are not measured on ownership. Ne? So that's how we then get scored. If we spend the X amount of money on skills and so forth, then we get a level. So be it a level 1 or a level 8. Now with private entities, there are sector specific codes. For example, in one sector, ownership might be less than another sector. So that's why I'm very cautious in answering, because I'm not really that familiar with the minerals and resources sector in terms of EBBEE and how they are measured. But where influence can be done, there's nothing that can be influenced. So if we feel that because of this loophole of not measuring this element of ownership properly, we are finding that you still get, quote unquote, a majority white-owned companies getting the high BE levels. This is where we apply the law of action and demand for that change to happen in terms of them revising the sector-specific codes. What I have observed is that usually when these things are being changed, number one, we don't know that they are being changed. We don't know where to even get the gazette, because they gazette these things. So we don't even submit comment. We don't even do much. And then the next thing, the new codes are implemented and they actually don't benefit the whole agenda of transformation. So I hope somewhere in there you found my answer. But yes, with the proviso that I would have to look at the specific codes that apply in that sector to make a more informed opinion. And then in terms of the small companies, Mahomu's question is, how do we get them to, it's almost like we're asking, how do we get people to care about themselves, because there's, yes, indeed, more of these, for example, with company registration, there is a fee, but it's not really that much. There is a fee, but with tax registration, there might be a little fee. Central supplier database, it's actually free. CIDP, I'm not sure, I've not registered a CIDP company, but I think there's a little fee, again, it's for just admin. BE certification, it depends. So if you are a small company, you were talking to small companies, so they would be more the exempted micro enterprises. I mean, I did mention earlier, CIPC can help you generate a BE certificate if you are an exempted micro enterprise. So you don't even need to pay a fee there. Now, with all that considered, perhaps maybe the other barrier would be internet connection or access to a computer and things like those. With all of that provided to them, I don't see why people should still have a problem in making sure that they have these prerequisites, because without them, you will not be able to even move much in terms of engaging the state. So how do we get them to do it? It really depends if they want to do it, Malcolm. I'm not sure how to answer the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there a follow-up on Mr. Kolongana and Ms. Makhomo? In the absence of that, while I wait for the hands, I will go through to the charts. Buti Sipe, who's the acting chair of SALGC, says, "Thank you, Mayor Gamede, for an exceptional and on-point presentation. I like the law of action, as most of us tend to make noise about issues, nothing to act on in correcting or applying self-make change." There's Galaxy 832, sorry, I don't know who's that. Thank you for the great presentation. Very useful information presented, well presented. Thank you very much, Liseho, Scheme Sam. Okay, yeah, and then, okay, they will say, this is powerful by Lutando. This is powerful training. Can you please have the audio and presentation? I responded to that to say we'll only issue the video recording and audio because the presenter has requested they won't be able to share the actual document presented. Any other questions? I think from here we'll do better. Those businesses, those who have their businesses in their mind, they'll start to action it, put some emotion on it, and start moving with the action. We're tired of complaining and sitting and on doing nothing about it. So, any other questions? I think we are closing if there's none. Any other question? Going once, going twice. Let me take the opportunity to thank you, Ntandose, for making time, spending so much time to prepare this presentation, your valuable time. We appreciate that. And the SALGC is a non-profit organization. We are trying to empower people who don't have any funding. If you go to www.salgc.org.za, you've got an opportunity to assist so that we get more people coming through. Luckily, Ntandose has not charged us a cent, so we appreciate that very much. And I think the justice that we can make on her spending so much time is to get the confessions from people to say, I don't know, my English is from Mbogotwe, so sometimes it runs away and I have to look out under my desk. But is to say the justice that we can provide in what she's offered to us is to come back and give a sort of a feedback to say, this is how this lecture assisted me. So I think that's very important. Let's get people procuring with the state. We're not wasting anyone's time, but doing properly. And forming those partnerships. I mean, there are a lot of people that know a bit about something. And if all of us come together, we can able to do so much about it. And I want to thank everyone for sacrificing your Sunday to come through. Quoting from what she said, the presenter shared with us from Jacques Rosen. Universal silence must be taken to imply consent of the people. So meaning that if there's nothing, if you are not doing anything, that's why they used to say silence is consent. So if you are not saying anything, we assume that you are happy, the status quo remains. So let's all be the doers of what we want to see in the world. Let's all be the change that we want to see in the world. I want to thank you everyone for coming through. As we close, thank you. Any parting word, Ntandose?
Well, not much, but just to thank you also for the invite again, and to thank the attendees for their attention. You know, sometimes one can feel like you're just going on, maybe people, you're losing them somewhere along the way. But thank you also for the feedback that you've given me in this platform. But yes, indeed, if any of this has helped you, it would really be helpful to know that because of this presentation, I was able to get this right. And this is where I am now. So that feedback I will get, I suppose, via yourselves as SALGC. So thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please sign up as a friend of the SALGC to assist us direct our programs and have input. The inputs that you've provided today, they are very important. And I think they assist a lot of the Black community to rally along and move together. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Have a blessed part of the day and the week ahead. Be productive. Put actions to your thoughts. Thank you, everyone. Good evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.